It's the clash of the tech titans. Meanwhile, Apple recently announcing an update to its privacy policy, which will allow iPhone users to decide if they want to share their data for advertising purposes. Facebook coming out as a staunch critic and launching a campaign against the policy, saying it would crush small businesses that rely on targeted advertising to reach its customers. This marks just the latest in a long string of battles between the tech giants. For more, let's bring in CNBC's Steve Kovac and Danny Fortson, the Sunday Times West Coast correspondent. Gentlemen, good to see both of you. Steve, I'll go to you first because I know that you just published on this. When did the feud between Zuckerberg and Cook start, and is this just the latest iteration of that?
Exactly, that's right. This really goes back, Kayla, to the beginning and the infancy of the iPhone, when people were still trying to figure out, okay, how are we going to use the internet on these devices? And you had Apple's view that it should be kind of app-centric. It should be this curated app store with privacy controls, and each app that goes through Apple is approved before a user can actually download it. On the other side, you have Facebook's view, which had more of this open web view and this Wild West view that everything should be free and supported by ads, which is obviously Facebook's business model. And that's just accelerated from there through the years until we get to where we are today, where the two are beefing over this privacy rule, which Facebook says, hey, this can really affect people's abilities to advertise on Facebook and across the iPhone. And you have Apple saying that's still allowed, but you just have to get permission first.
Right. Well, Danny, it's interesting that Zuckerberg is coming out swinging so hard against this initiative in particular, because hasn't this been what Washington has been asking these tech companies for all this time? You need to be more transparent with your users and your customers about where exactly you're tracking them and picking up their data. And shouldn't Zuckerberg be on the side of supporting that if he is truly in favor of transparency and regulation of these companies?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, if anything, this just is another example of Facebook's congenital inability to read the room. This is a company that is under antitrust investigation. It's been sued by the federal government and virtually every state in the union. And all they're asking, all this change, you know, Facebook is billing it as almost like a nuclear bomb being detonated on the internet as we know it, when really all they're trying to do is make explicit what has for years been unspoken, this idea that, okay, we will give you this product for free. In exchange, we collect your data to serve ads. So theoretically, there should not be a problem here. But of course, Facebook knows that if faced with that bald, stark statement, do you want to be tracked? Most people will say no.
Steve, what's really going on here? What are both CEOs after? They're obviously fighting their own antitrust battles and for regulation that's friendly to them. Why the tension, and why has it reached a boiling point right now?
Yeah, and that's what's really hard to understand. What is the end game for Facebook launching this campaign? And I've been talking to people at the company and people on both sides of the issue, and no one can really understand why they're doing this. It could be a distraction for their own antitrust troubles. And it's just a deep irony here that Facebook is saying Apple is abusing its market power when Facebook literally has 2 lawsuits against them right now for their market power and for antitrust violations. And their argument is Apple's decision here is going to crush small businesses who thrive by advertising on Facebook. But the problem here is that argument exposes Facebook's own market power. Facebook is the only game in town for these small businesses to advertise. If Facebook had a viable competitor, this Apple change wouldn't matter to those advertisers. And I think that's kind of getting lost in this whole debate.
Yeah, and Facebook has now built a model that depends on those small businesses advertising. Danny, you raised the point that Tim Cook has raised many times, which is if you are not paying for the product, you are the product. So it sounds like if Facebook were to strip ads from its platform and just charge users to use the platform, that wouldn't necessarily solve the issue. What do you think, Danny?
Well, exactly. I mean, what this really is a fight between 2 of the biggest landlords on the internet, And what they're doing is really trading insults over how they extract rent from each of us. Because, of course, Apple is also under investigation. They're not saints here. They control the app economy. 2 million plus apps, every cent of the money that flows through that system, Apple takes its 30% cut. That is being investigated. And Facebook, it goes back to this unspoken bargain. By shining light onto it, you're really calling to question, the whole edifice upon which this empire is built. And I think that is what is really scary for Facebook.
We will leave it there, but it doesn't sound like it's the end of this story. Steve and Danny, thank you very much.
Shepard Smith here. Thanks for watching CNBC on YouTube.